My ex wanted a father figure, so she slept with my best friend and got pregnant. I made sure they both understood what happens when the good man finally snapped. All right, Reddit. This happened back in 2022 and changed everything about who I am. People in my town still whisper about it when they think I can't hear. Some think I went too far. Others think I didn't go far enough. My attorney said it was the most ruthless divorce he'd seen in 30 years of practice. Here's what actually went down. I'm Jake, 45 years old when this started. Lived my entire adult life in Ashford, Texas. Population barely breaks 1,000 on a good day. The kind of small town where everyone knows your truck before they know your face, where the local diner has the same menu it had in 1987, and where secrets don't stay buried for long. I drove a 2019 Ford F-150 XLT in magnetic gray. Kept that thing cleaner than most people keep their kitchens. Every Saturday morning without fail, I'd wash and wax it in the driveway. Had the extended cab, the 5.0-liter V8 tow package for when I needed to haul equipment. Bought it used with 30,000 miles for 28 grand. Paid it off in 3 years because I don't believe in carrying debt longer than necessary. Owned my house outright too. 3-bedroom ranch style on 2 acres at the south end of town, right where the paved roads give way to gravel. Bought it for $95,000 back in 2004 when the market was reasonable. Put another $20,000 into it over the years. New roof in 2015. Updated the electrical panel myself in 2018. Refinished the hardwood floors in 2020 during lockdown because I had the time and the skill. Workshop sat out back. 30 by 40 pole barn I built with my father-in-law Robert back in 2010. Insulated it properly. Ran dedicated electrical lines. Installed LED lighting on the ceiling. That's where I spent most of my free time restoring old motorcycles. A 1998 Harley Sportster 1200 sat on blocks out there, waiting for me to finish rewiring the electrical system. Found it on Craigslist for $1,500. Guy didn't know what he had. Motor was solid. Frame was clean. Just needed someone who knew what they were doing to bring it back to life. Been married to Laura for 22 years when this all started. High school sweethearts. The whole small-town romance story people make movies about. Met her sophomore year when she transferred from another district. She was in my English class. Quiet girl who sat in the back and sketched during lectures. I asked to borrow a pencil one day just to have an excuse to talk to her. Took her to prom junior year. Proposed senior year on graduation night. Got married that summer at the First Baptist Church, with maybe 70 people in attendance. Her parents weren't thrilled about us getting married so young, but they came around. My folks loved her from day one. Laura taught art at Ashford Elementary. Started there right out of college and stayed for 18 years. The kids adored her. She had that patient, encouraging way about her that made even the most reluctant student want to try. Her classroom always smelled like tempera paint and construction paper. Walls covered in student artwork. She'd stay late every Tuesday and Thursday to run the after-school art club. Our daughter Claire was 17, senior year of high school. Played violin like she'd been born with the instrument in her hands. First chair in the school orchestra since freshman year. Won regional competitions 3 years running. Had colleges looking at her for music scholarships, but she'd already committed to this summer intensive program in Austin. 5 weeks of professional instruction, master classes, performance opportunities. Cost $4,200, but I paid it without hesitation. Kid had real talent, the kind that outgrew what our small-town school could offer. Life was comfortable in that steady, predictable way. Not exciting, not dramatic, just solid. The kind of life where you know what Tuesday looks like a month from now. I'd wake up at 5:30 every morning, make coffee in the 12-cup Mr. Coffee machine we'd had since 2008, drink 2 cups black while reading the news on my phone. Laura would come down around 6:15, already dressed for school. She'd pour herself coffee with cream and sugar, sit across from me at the kitchen table. We didn't need to talk much in the mornings, just comfortable silence broken by the occasional comment about the weather or plans for dinner. She'd leave for school at 7. I'd finish my coffee, check my schedule for the day, load my tools into the truck. My work kept me busy and local. Fixed wiring, installed ceiling fans, replaced circuit breakers, troubleshot electrical issues. Had my electrician's license since 2003. Built up a solid client base over the years. People trusted me because I showed up when I said I would. Did the job right the first time. Charged fair prices. Mrs. Jenkins down on Maple Street had my number on speed dial. Called me every time a light bulb burnt out, even though I'd shown her husband how to change them himself at least 6 times. I also volunteered at the fire station. Ashford Volunteer Fire Department. 23 active members, most of us holding down other jobs. I'd been with them since 2005. Started just helping out with equipment maintenance, Eventually became a certified firefighter, did EMT training. We didn't get many calls. Maybe one structure fire a year. Mostly vehicle accidents, medical emergencies, false alarms. But when someone needed help at 3 in the morning, we showed up. Sunday dinners were mandatory at Laura's parents' place. Robert and Patricia Patterson lived in the same house where Laura grew up. Big old Victorian on Elm Street with a wraparound porch and a garden, Patricia tended like it was her fourth child. We'd arrive around 1 o'clock. Robert would be in his leather recliner watching football or golf or whatever sport was in season. Patricia would be in the kitchen finishing up the meal. Robert Patterson was retired sheriff, spent 32 years in law enforcement before hanging it up in 2015. Tough old guy with opinions on everything, but he respected me. Said I reminded him of how men used to be. Reliable, honest, someone you could count on in a crisis. We'd talk shop while he drank sweet tea, and I helped Patricia set the table. Dinners with them were pleasant. Pot roast or fried chicken or Patricia's famous meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans from her garden, homemade rolls. Claire would talk about school. Laura would share stories from her classroom. Robert would occasionally launch into some story from his law enforcement days. Patricia would just smile and make sure everyone had seconds. My own parents lived on the other side of town. Dad was retired from the post office. Mom had been a school secretary for 30 years before retiring. They doted on Claire, proud of their only granddaughter. Sunday afternoons after dinner at the Pattersons, we'd usually swing by my parents' place for dessert. Mom always had something baked. Chocolate chip cookies were her specialty. Life had a rhythm to it. Monday through Friday, I worked. Evenings, I'd either have a small job or I'd be in the workshop. Weekends were for bigger projects, family time, church on Sunday morning at First Baptist, dinners with family. Every other Saturday night, Laura and I would go to Mackenzie's Steakhouse in the next town over. Our date night tradition since our 10th anniversary. Pastor Reynolds knew my name, would nod at me during sermons, and sometimes use me as an example of consistency in an inconsistent world. Made me uncomfortable when he did it, but I understood what he meant. In a small town like Ashford, people noticed when you showed up, and I showed up everywhere I was supposed to be. Sheriff Davis, who took over after Robert retired, would give me hell about taking too long on jobs at the station. I'd been slowly upgrading their electrical system over the past year. Old building, terrible wiring, everything on the verge of code violations. I'd joke that I was saving them from fire hazards, and he'd complain that I was taking too long about it. Kids in town waved when I drove past in my truck. The teenagers working at the grocery store knew I liked my coffee black and my receipts in the bag. Mrs. Watkins, who lived alone after her husband passed in 2019, had my number taped next to her phone. Called me at least once a month for some minor issue that usually didn't need an electrician, but I'd go anyway because she was lonely and I didn't mind. I was that guy. The one who showed up when you needed him. Fixed your problem. Charged what the job was actually worth. Didn't cut corners. Didn't talk your ear off. Just did solid work and went home. Boring as hell to most people, but it was mine and I was proud of it. Claire had been practicing intensely for that Austin program. Every evening after dinner, I'd hear her in her room. Scales, technical exercises, then pieces she was preparing. Vivaldi, Bach, some contemporary composer I couldn't pronounce. The music would drift through the house. Laura would fold laundry in the living room humming along. I'd be out in the workshop cleaning tools or working on the Harley. Those were the moments you don't appreciate until they're gone. Just normal Tuesday nights, regular weekday evenings, nothing special happening, but comfortable, safe, the kind of life you think will last forever, because why wouldn't it? Looking back now, I can see I took it for granted. Assumed Laura would always be at the kitchen table in the morning. Assumed Claire would always be practicing violin in her room. Assumed my biggest problem would be whether to upgrade my compound miter saw or save the money for new tires on the truck. I was wrong about all of it. Mrs. Watkins had me over one morning in early March to fix a light switch that was sparking. Simple job, loose wire in the box. Took me 20 minutes. She served sweet tea while I worked, sitting at her kitchen table and talking about her grandchildren who lived in Dallas. When I finished, she looked at me with those kind eyes and said how lucky I was to have such a solid family. I agreed with her. Said I thanked God every day for it. Meant it too. Sat there drinking sweet tea in her kitchen, thinking about how blessed I was. Good wife, great kid, steady work, comfortable home, respect in the community. What more could a man ask for? But something felt off that whole week. Couldn't put my finger on what. Just this weight in my chest that wouldn't go away. Like when you know a storm's coming but the sky's still clear. I'd sit on the porch at night after Laura and Claire went to bed, staring at nothing, trying to figure out what was bugging me. Tried to shake it off. Told myself I was being paranoid. Stress from work, probably. Or just getting older and more aware of my own mortality. Normal middle-aged guy stuff. Turns out my gut knew something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. Your instincts pick up on things before your conscious mind processes them. Little details that don't quite add up. Patterns that feel wrong even if you can't explain why. The whole thing started when Tyler Walker came back to town that same week in March. Tyler and I went way back. Kindergarten friends. The kind of friendship where you're basically brothers, even though you're not related. We ran wild through Ashford as kids. Built forts in the woods. Learned to ride bikes on the same stretch of road. Got in trouble together for sneaking into the abandoned grain elevator. Convinced we'd both get out someday and do something bigger than small-town Texas. Difference was, Tyler actually left after high school. Headed to college in Dallas. Got a business degree. Bounced around different cities, trying different jobs. Sales rep for a medical supply company. Account manager for some tech startup that went under. Marketing coordinator for a nonprofit that laid him off. He'd come back to Ashford occasionally for holidays or family stuff, but never stayed long. Always had somewhere else to be. Something else to chase. This time when he came back, everything was different. Wasn't visiting. Wasn't passing through. Came back to die. He showed up on my porch one Saturday morning in mid-March, looking like death had already started the paperwork. Pale skin stretched tight over sharp cheekbones. Lost maybe 40 pounds since I'd seen him at Christmas 2 years prior. Moved like an old man even though he was only 43. Stage 4 blood cancer. The kind with a fancy medical name I can't remember. Doctors gave him maybe a year if he was lucky. We sat on my porch that morning with glasses of sweet tea while he laid it all out. The diagnosis. The failed treatments. The impossible odds. The timeline he was staring down. His voice was steady, but quiet. Like he'd already made peace with it and was just informing me of facts. I didn't know what to say at first. Just sat there watching the wind move through the grass across the road while trying to process that my best friend since elementary school was dying. Your brain doesn't want to accept information like that. Keeps trying to find angles where it's not true, where the doctors made a mistake, where there's some treatment they haven't tried yet. Finally told him he should have said something sooner. He laughed. That same laugh I'd heard 10,000 times growing up. Said he didn't want to ruin the surprise. Asked him where he was staying. He'd rented old Mrs. Cooper's place on the west side of town. 2-bedroom house that had been sitting empty since she moved to a nursing home. Landlord was happy to have someone in there even short term. Tyler didn't have much. One suitcase of clothes. Laptop. Stack of medical paperwork that would have overwhelmed anyone. I made a decision right there. Told Tyler I'd help however I could. Drives to appointments, errands, whatever he needed. He tried to wave it off. Said he didn't want to be a burden. I shut that down immediately. 23 years of friendship don't disappear because life got hard. From that day on, helping Tyler became part of my routine. Took him to his oncology appointments at the medical center in Waco. 2 hours each way. Sat in waiting rooms for hours while they pumped poison into his veins, trying to slow down the cancer that was eating him alive. Picked up his prescriptions from the pharmacy. Helped him figure out his insurance paperwork because the system is designed to confuse dying people. Cleaned his rental house when the nausea got too bad for him to care. When I couldn't be there because I had work, Laura stepped in. At first I appreciated it. Laura had always been that way. Nurturing. Couldn't stand seeing people suffer. She'd bring Tyler meals. Vegetable soup, grilled chicken, things that wouldn't upset his stomach. Changed his sheets. Ran his errands. Organized his medications in one of those daily pill containers, so he wouldn't miss doses. She'd rearrange her teaching schedule to help more often. Taking personal days. Leaving school early. Going over to Tyler's place on her lunch breaks. I thought it was kind. Thought it showed what good people we were. Taking care of someone who had nobody else. Didn't see the warning signs until it was way too late. The shift happened gradually. So slow I didn't notice at first. Dinners at home got quieter. Laura started missing family meals. I'd come home from a job to find a cold plate wrapped in foil sitting on the counter. Note saying she was at Tyler's. Claire would take her dinner to her room. I'd sit alone at the kitchen table eating leftover pot roast, listening to the house settle around me. Tried to tell myself it was temporary. Tyler needed extra help during this rough patch. Once he stabilized on a treatment regimen, things would go back to normal. Laura would be home for dinner again. We'd go back to our regular routine, but it kept getting worse. Laura would come home past 10 at night smelling like antiseptic. Eyes red from crying. Too exhausted to talk. She'd go straight to the bathroom, take a long shower, then collapse into bed. I'd try to start a conversation. Ask how Tyler was doing. Ask if she needed anything. She'd give 1 or 2 word answers, then turn away. The bedroom started feeling like foreign territory. We'd shared that space for over 2 decades, knew each other's sleep patterns, the sounds the other made at night, the way we'd unconsciously reach for each other. Now it felt like sleeping next to a stranger. She'd lie on her side of the bed, with her back to me. I'd lie on mine, staring at the ceiling. Neither of us saying anything. One night I tried to bridge the gap. Mentioned how I'd noticed she was spending a lot of time helping Tyler. Said I appreciated her kindness, but missed having her around. Asked if maybe we could find some balance. She sighed like I was being unreasonable. Said Tyler was dying and needed support, that he had nobody else. Asked what I expected her to do. Abandon him. I didn't push it. Just said okay and rolled over. But the distance between us felt like it was measured in miles instead of inches. Laura started talking about Tyler constantly, his treatments, his struggles, how unfair it was that he never got to have a family, how he deserved better than dying alone. I'd nod and make sympathetic sounds while fixing a leaky faucet or replacing a light fixture. But the frequency started bothering me. Every conversation circled back to Tyler, his pain, his loneliness, his regrets. One Tuesday night in late April, I came home around 8 from a big job. Replaced all the wiring at the Henderson Farms equipment barn. Long day. Back was sore. Hands covered in cuts from stripping wire. House was dark except for Claire's room upstairs. Another foil-wrapped plate on the counter. Cold pot roast and carrots. Third time that week. I served myself. Sat down at the kitchen table. Barely took 2 bites before Laura came in. Keys in hand, purse over her shoulder. Asked if I'd eaten yet. Told her I just started. She walked past me to get water from the fridge. Asked if I'd talked to Claire today. Said she was with friends. Laura nodded. I set down my fork. Said we needed to talk. This situation with Tyler couldn't continue like this. She turned sharply. What situation? I took a breath. Explained that I understood Tyler was sick and needed help. That I was glad we could be there for him. But this was our home. Our family. Our life. And lately it felt like we were the afterthought. Laura's expression hardened. Said Tyler was dying. That he had less than a year. That he needed people who cared about him. Asked her what that made us. If we didn't matter as much as he did. She grabbed her keys. Said she wasn't having this conversation right now. Headed for the door. I raised my voice for the first time in months. Said she was choosing him over her own family. She stopped in the doorway. Didn't turn around. Just stood there for a few seconds. Then walked out. Drove straight back to Tyler's place. I sat alone at that kitchen table with my half-eaten dinner getting colder. Stared at the chair she'd just vacated. The untouched plate I'd set out for her just in case she came home hungry. The kitchen where we'd made 1,000 family meals together over 22 years. That's when I made my decision. That's when the silent treatment started. I stopped talking to Laura completely. No good mornings, no questions about her day. Nothing. When she tried to talk to me, I'd move past her like she was furniture. Made breakfast for myself and Claire. Left nothing for Laura. Came and went without acknowledging her existence. She tried to fix it at first. Would wake up early and make eggs the way I liked them. Leave them by the toaster like she always had. I'd walk past them, make my own food, and leave. Came home later to find the untouched eggs in the trash. Laura started leaving notes. Stopped reading them. She'd stand in doorways trying to catch my eye when I walked past. I'd look straight through her like she was a window. The bedroom situation changed too. I moved all her stuff to the guest room one afternoon while she was at Tyler's. Clothes, photos, that little jade plant she kept on the windowsill. Everything. Packed it neatly and relocated it without a word. When she came home that night and saw what I'd done, she tried calling me. Let it ring. Stood in the hallway staring at the closed door to what used to be our room, then slowly walked to the guest room. Claire noticed. Asked me one night why Mom was never around anymore. I told her to ask her mother. Didn't elaborate, didn't explain, just walked away. Claire went and found Laura later. They talked behind closed doors for over an hour. Nothing changed though. Laura kept going to Tyler's place every day. Kept coming home late. Kept trying to get my attention while I treated her like she didn't exist. This went on for weeks. I'd come home, eat alone, work on the Harley in my shop, go to bed. Laura would tiptoe around the house like a ghost, trying to find ways back into my good graces. I gave her nothing. People in town noticed, but nobody said anything. Small towns operate on a specific code. You don't pry into domestic situations unless someone asks for help. Then came the Thursday that changed everything. I got home around 4 in the afternoon from a job. House was empty, or so I thought. I went to the bedroom to change. That's when Laura appeared in the doorway. She looked terrible. Red eyes, shaking hands, clothes disheveled. Said Tyler was in the hospital. Heart was failing. Didn't have much time left. I sat on the edge of the bed and let that sink in. My oldest friend was dying. The kid I'd grown up with, shared secrets with, considered a brother, and he was fading away right now. But he was also the reason my marriage had fallen apart. I stood up and opened the door, asked Laura what else she needed to tell me. My voice was completely flat, emotionless. She started crying, said she was pregnant. The hallway went silent except for the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. I stood there processing while she sobbed. Asked her how far along. 3 months. Asked her whose it was. Already knew the answer but needed to hear her say it. She broke down completely. Said it was Tyler's. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds. Then I told her we needed to get a paternity test. Said I didn't trust her anymore. That's when her knees gave out. She collapsed in the hallway, hit the hardwood floor hard, just folded up and went down. I didn't move, didn't try to catch her, didn't kneel down to check if she was okay. Just stood there watching her crumpled on the floor. She was out for maybe 5 minutes. When she came to, she was still lying on the floor. Looked up at me sitting in the bedroom chair. Asked why I hadn't helped her up. I told her so she'd know what it felt like to be abandoned. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Slowly got herself to her feet, leaning against the wall. Voice was barely a whisper when she confirmed it. Yes, the baby was Tyler's. Then she tried to explain. Said Tyler wanted to be a father before he died. Wanted his bloodline to continue. Said she agreed to help him have that. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, opened them and asked if she understood the irony of a man dying from cancer in his blood, wanting that same corrupted blood passed on to a child. Laura's face went pale. Asked if I was seriously mocking Tyler's cancer. I smiled. Told her at least I was being honest, which was more than I could say for a homewrecker. She fell to her knees in front of me, begging now, please let her have the baby. She'd take care of it herself. It was Tyler's last wish. I didn't blink. Told her she never asked me first. Never consulted me before spreading her legs for that dying piece of garbage. So she didn't get to ask me now to bless her birthing a bastard. She stared at me like I was a stranger. Said I was cruel, that I'd changed into someone she didn't recognize. I stood up, said we were going to the hospital. Needed to look Tyler in the eye and ask him what it felt like to stab your best friend in the back. Laura pleaded with me not to go, not to hurt him. Said he was dying. I grabbed my keys, told her if I wanted him dead, he'd already be dead. But I wanted him to live long enough to suffer. That's when Claire came home. Walked in and saw her mother crying on the floor. Saw me standing by the door with my keys. She froze on the porch. Asked Laura if she told me yet. I turned and looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. She knew. This whole time she knew. I didn't say anything. Just smiled at her. Not a warm smile. Not a father's smile. The kind of smile that made her take a step back. Nodded at her slowly. Still smiling. Then stepped aside. Laura grabbed her purse and followed me to the truck. The drive to Waco was dead silent. We parked at the medical center around 7. Walked through those fluorescent-lit hallways that all smell the same. Found Tyler's room in the ICU wing without any trouble. He was hooked up to machines, oxygen mask covering half his face, looking like he'd aged 20 years since I saw him just last week. Tubes ran from his arms. Heart monitor beeping steady but weak. Room smelled like antiseptic and the particular scent of death approaching. Eyes opened when we walked in. Recognized me immediately. Something like relief crossed his face. Probably thought I was there to comfort him. I dragged a metal stool across the floor with a long, deliberate screech. The sound echoed in the small room. Sat down right next to the bed, close enough to see every detail of his failing body. Leaned in even closer. Told him, hey buddy, got something to share. First thing was that Laura just told me she's pregnant with his kid. His eyes went wide behind that mask. Actual shock registered. Tried to say something, but the oxygen mask muffled it to nothing. Good. I wanted him to listen, not talk. Kept going in that same calm, conversational tone. Told him I was going to make absolutely sure that baby was born. Wanted to know why? Because I wanted to see his son grow up without anyone to call dad. Wanted that kid to wake up every single morning feeling that emptiness gnawing at him. Going to school and watching other kids get picked up by their fathers at the end of the day, while he stood there waiting for someone who would never, ever come. Tyler's hand twitched on the blanket. Tyler's hand, fingers trying to curl, but he was too weak to lift it. Too weak to do anything except lie there and listen. I smiled wider. Told him that kid would be miserable. Genuinely, deeply miserable. Because the man who donated his genetic material to create him was going to die right here in this very hospital bed without ever knowing his son's name, without ever holding him, without ever being anything except a biological footnote. leaned in closer, said Laura would raise that bastard alone, that she'd never find a decent man willing to be a father to another man's child, that every guy who came into her life would use her and leave, and that kid would watch it happen, would see how men treated his mother, would see the parade of disappointments, told Tyler his son would grow up hurt, day after day, would fill up with hatred and rot and evil, would eventually curse Tyler's name, would curse the man who gave him life and the woman who destroyed a marriage to bring him into existence. The monitors started going crazy, beeping faster and faster. Tyler's chest was heaving, gasping behind the mask. His eyes bulged. Nurses rushed in, doctor yelling at me to back away. I stood up slowly, looked down at Tyler one last time, told him I came to watch him suffer and die. Then I walked into the hallway, stood outside the glass door with my arms crossed, made eye contact with Tyler through the window. The doctors swarmed around him, but his eyes stayed locked on mine. The machine started screaming. Long, steady tone. Nurse came out and said he was gone. I said it loud enough for Laura to hear. "See you in hell, you piece of trash." Laura collapsed again, hit the floor hard, fainted right there in the hospital hallway. I stepped aside so the nurse could help her. Didn't touch her myself, just watched while they got her stable. Pulled out my phone and called my mom. Told her Laura was at the hospital and needed a ride. Hung up before she could ask questions. Got in my truck and left. Turned off my phone. Disappeared for a week. The divorce papers got served 3 days after I came back. Laura stood in the living room reading them with shaking hands. She tried to call me. Phone was still off. That evening, my parents and her parents showed up. My mom, Margaret, looked worried. Laura's dad, Robert, looked angry. Her mom, Patricia, stood near the stairs. Claire was upstairs in her room. Robert spoke first. Asked why I was divorcing Laura when she was carrying my child. I set down my glass and turned to Laura. Told her to explain to everyone why I served those papers. She couldn't speak, just stood there crying. I said it clearly. Laura slept with Tyler Walker and got pregnant with his baby. So no, her situation wasn't my concern. The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Turned to my mom. Told her Laura betrayed everything we built. That I prayed every day for her to suffer. Wanted to see her raise that bastard alone. Wanted to live long enough to see that kid curse her for his miserable existence. Margaret stepped back like I'd hit her. Stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. This wasn't the son she raised. The man who volunteered at the fire station, who fixed people's electrical work for free when they couldn't afford it. Margaret touched Laura's arm gently. Asked me if there was any way to forgive her. Save the marriage. 22 years together, a daughter, a whole life built. I just stared at her, then looked back at Laura. Robert stepped forward, said the child was innocent, that if Laura was stressed it would harm the baby, begged me to think of the child's health. I smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes. Said every second she stayed in this house, I'd remind her she was filthy, that she destroyed 2 decades of marriage for a twisted desire, that she betrayed her vows for a dying man, told them I'd love to watch her suffer. And that baby? I had no sympathy. Nothing. Whatever happened to it was its destiny. Laura crumpled to her knees, sobbing, clutching her stomach and rocking. I poured myself another glass of water, leaned back on the couch like nothing was happening. The chaos around me might as well have been background noise. Claire stood at the top of the stairs watching. I looked up at her and smiled. Same cold, empty smile. She shivered and backed away into her room. Robert helped Laura to her feet. Said they were leaving. Didn't wait for arguments. Just guided his daughter out of the house and drove her back to their place. That night, Robert tore into Laura. Told her she'd killed a good man. That I was like a son to him. Honest, devoted, the kind of husband most women pray for. Said she killed my soul. Told her there was a special place in hell for women like her. Laura moved in with her parents temporarily. The divorce went through the courts fast. No therapists, no reconciliation attempts. Just straightforward dissolution. Texas law gave her half my savings and half my retirement account. I signed it all without arguing. The courthouse steps were quiet that morning in late July when we finalized everything. Laura didn't show up. Just sent her lawyer to sign on her behalf. Couldn't face me one last time. Fine by me. David Kane and I walked out together into the Texas heat. Summer sun beating down. Temperature already pushing 95 at 10 in the morning. Crossed the street to a small park bench under a dying oak tree. Sat down without saying much at first. Just 2 men processing the end of something. The leaves overhead rustled dryly in the wind, crispy from lack of rain. Drought had Texas in a chokehold that summer. David broke the silence first. Asked if I was doing okay. I shrugged. Said I was doing exactly as okay as expected. Told him thanks for handling everything so efficiently. The man was worth every cent of that $15,000 retainer. He laughed, said there was plenty more work where that came from. Plenty of husbands getting screwed over by wives who didn't appreciate what they had. Business was booming in the divorce sector. We sat there another few minutes. Then both stood up. David offered his hand. Firm handshake. Professional. Told me to take care of myself. I said I would. He started walking toward his car. Black Mercedes S-Class parked in the shade. Then stopped about 20 feet away. Turned back around. Called out, asked if he could cash in a favor eventually. I smiled faintly. Told him sure. I'd be around. He nodded once, then got in his car and drove away. Watched those taillights disappear down Main Street until he turned the corner. Stood there alone for another minute, then walked to my truck and drove home to that empty house. 6 months went by. Spring turned to summer. House was quiet. I didn't take on new jobs. Didn't go to the fire station. Just existed. Then Margaret called one evening. Said Laura gave birth. A boy. Baby was in the NICU. I didn't respond. She said the delivery was hard. Laura wasn't doing well. Still nothing from me. Margaret started to say something else. I hung up. 2 days later, the doctors told Laura the baby had a genetic heart defect. His heart was too weak. Laura just nodded and stared at the ceiling. 5 days after birth, the monitors flatlined. Baby died without making a sound. Laura's vitals started dropping within hours. Doctors recognized the signs. Broken heart syndrome. Stress-induced cardiomyopathy. She died 7 days after her son. Died alone in a hospital bed, without ever hearing from me again. Claire took it hard. The hatred she'd been carrying wasn't directed at the world or at her mother. It was all aimed at me. She remembered her 18th birthday 3 months earlier. That night, I'd thrown her a party. Decorated the whole house myself. Balloons, streamers, cake, music. Invited both sets of grandparents. Even invited Laura, which gave everyone hope. During the cake cutting, Claire made a wish. Said she wished our family could be together again. I'd poured myself some water and sat at the head of the table. Told her welcome to adulthood. Said it's not as sweet as cake. That wishes mean nothing in the real world. Told her the world only responds to actions. Good deeds get good results. Bad choices get bad consequences. Then I'd looked at Laura. Said very clearly that we were done. Over. No fixing it. No going back. The family she remembered died the moment Laura spread her legs for Tyler. Turned to Claire and told her to pack her bags. Get out of my house. She'd frozen. Asked what I was talking about. I stepped closer. Said she knew what her mother did. Knew about the affair. Said nothing. That made her an accomplice. Told her the college fund was gone. Liquidated. Money transferred to her account. Good luck finding a job and an apartment. Welcome to adulthood. Margaret had slapped me across the face. Called me heartless. A monster. I'd smiled at Laura. Same cold, poisonous smile. Robert had taken Laura and Claire away that night. After her mother died, Claire left town. No letter, no calls, no forwarding address. Just packed a bag and disappeared. Maybe Dallas, maybe Houston. Nobody knew for sure. Margaret tried calling me, said Claire was gone. I hung up without saying anything. Life continued in that empty way. I barely left the house. Stopped answering the door. Neighbors noticed but said nothing. Then one night I sat in my living room with a nearly empty glass of water and my grandfather's old revolver from World War II. Only photo left in the house was the family picture from 5 years ago. Laura, Claire, me. I raised the gun. Not at myself, at the photo. Fired one shot. Shattered the glass, split Laura's face in half. Set down the glass, brought the revolver to my temple. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.